my live stream that's going to happen in just a few minutes from now over on my business Facebook page. If you go to the community feature, you'll see a link that will bring you directly there. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today was this idea that sometimes when we discover that we're codependent, um, we also discover that we are in unhealthy one-way relationships, and that can come as a big shock because when you're codependent, you feel like everything that's going on is your fault, and you oftentimes attract people who help you feel that way because they don't take responsibility for their actions. They have thin skin and they will overreact to the things that you say, or they have this idea in their head that you're doing things on purpose to hurt them. And so it's important that we recognize that sometimes we discover um, that this is actually what's happening when we realize that we are codependent. So we realize that we're codependent, we're in a toxic relationship, and it's like it could be absolutely terrifying that we discover that this relationship is so toxic. Now, sometimes what happens is as we're in the midst of trying to figure this out, we don't know if we should stay or if we should go. And what I believe we should do in that situation, if we're still trying to figure out whether or not we should stay or we should go, is we should work on coming into alignment with what our body is telling us, because our body is always going to tell us the truth. Consider the feelings in your body as your North Star. Now, when you're codependent, you're raised to distrust how your body feels because your inner reality is not matching your outer reality. And your inner reality is in contrast to what's happening outside of you, meaning that you might feel terrified on the inside, but everything looks perfect on the outside. Or you might feel that you are being abused, but the people in your life are acting like this is normal, like gaslighting you, verbally abusing you, accusing you of things that you're not guilty of. That's normal, but your body is telling you something's wrong. And we have to recognize that even if there's no domestic violence, that this is abusive. This is an overt form of abuse. I'm sorry, a covert form of abuse. There's abuse by omission. So emotional neglect is abuse. And you're right, Andrew, it is crazy making. But what helps us recognize that, what helps us recognize recognizing what's going on, I believe, is gaining knowledge and information and wisdom. And Gladys just said, "Do you offer coaching certification classes?" Well, I offer coaching programs that come with certification. But if you're asking me if I've yet to create a coaching program for coaches, not yet, but that is on the horizon. But you're right, Andrew. It is crazy making. But here's the thing: it's crazy making, and we feel disordered because we're lacking data, we're lacking information. So imagine if you worked, let's say, for argument's sake, at Starbucks, and they didn't give you the right ingredients to make a cappuccino or a frappuccino, whatever the heck they make over there at Starbucks. They haven't given you the right ingredients, but people keep coming to the service desk saying, "I want this and I want that." You might feel like this is crazy making inside, right? Because you don't have enough information or enough data or enough tools to understand what's happening. But the minute your manager comes over and says, "Oh, Andrew, you know what? We didn't give you what you needed to make that cappuccino or that frappuccino. Here, dear one, go over there." Now, all of a sudden, Andrew doesn't feel like so crazy because what's brought his mind under control is additional data, additional information. So I do feel that when we're operating below the veil of consciousness, especially if we're codependent, because you're operating from a program, but you don't know it, and the program is subconscious. And you could live your whole life like my mom did and croak a codependent, thinking, "Oh, my partner's going to die one day." She always thought my dad was going to die first, and she was wrong. And I believe that he completely, utterly drained her. And very sad, she died as a codependent woman and never escaped. So that's part of like what drives me to like do this work every day. Like, wake up, dear one. It's not you, it's your programming. Um, It's so important that we awaken. So if you're codependent, you will feel um, under the guise of this crazy making because you don't trust your feelings and you don't know how to set a boundary. And so the pain versus pleasure principle is governing your reality, meaning that you don't know at the subconscious level that you are wired to avoid setting a boundary. You don't know that on at a subconscious level that on the flip side of what you fear, you're also associating pleasure with approval. So imagine a dog that just is so up its owner's butt looking for that treat, trying to seek this owner's approval. We can actually become like these puppies seeking approval, and at the same time fearing abandonment. Now, that's a catch 22 because if you're involved with someone who's highly narcissistic, they're very manipulative and they project their flaws onto you. You end up feeling like your mind is swirling, like your head is full of cotton because you're constantly getting accused of things that you're not guilty of. And you know, on some level, I think my partner is actually guilty of that, but you can't say that to a narcissistic partner because they'll bite your head off, right? So you end up stuffing your feelings, don't say anything, walk around on eggshells, and you make allowances for it rather than setting boundaries. And that's very unhealthy. And so I think Andrew, speaking to Andrew, because Andrew said this was crazy making, you're absolutely right, Andrew. But I think what we have to think about is that we have to find and seek the information that brings order to this to the conscious mind. The minute I was diagnosed with codependency, that mind shift began to change my identity. It was like, wait a minute, I'm not broken. I thought that I was eternally flawed. I thought there must be something wrong with me because everybody loves him and I'm the only person he has a problem with. So it must be me. I didn't understand that there was an agenda for him to treat other people differently than he treated me. And then once I was diagnosed with codependency, I was able to understand, wow, like I'm seeking his approval. I'm not seeking my own. I'm abandoning myself um, to take care of him. And this person doesn't really care about me at all. Like this was so unbalanced. But I used to think it's my fault that he can't be caring. It's my fault that he can't understand me. It's my fault that he's so upset with me. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. And that was the 3-year-old in me. When you're 3 years old and you're being pushed away, of course you think it's your fault. And if it's your fault, then certainly you can fix it, which is why we fawn and why we end up with so much relationship anxiety and insecure attachment, because all of this goes back to childhood. And then what we don't realize, dear one, is that our energy is so insecure that we really aren't a magnet for authentic love. And that's why my first book, The Road Back to Me, was written through the eyes of my inner child, hopefully to inspire you to see your life through the eyes of your inner child so that you can develop some compassion and empathy for this little tiny person inside of you that simply didn't get what they needed throughout their childhood and who is acting out these patterns and programs and paradigms below the veil of consciousness, unaware that you're unaware. I don't think there's anything more tragic than that, is to be born into a family that doesn't give you what you need to become I would say, confident, self self-aware individual who can handle the ups and the downs in life, knowing that this too shall pass. I don't think that there's anything sadder than to be born into an unhealthy family and then to carry the burden of those patterns and programs and then to live your life unaware that you can escape that paradigm. And in your unawareness, you stay stuck in that paradigm and recreate these family patterns that were so painful to you as a child. I mean, I married my mother. My ex-husband was her energetic twin. And it wasn't until I started to understand what codependency was, why I was codependent, this long history of alcoholism in my family, how it affected my parents. It wasn't until I began to put the pieces of the puzzle together that I began to understand, oh, this is these are my behaviors, right? And my behaviors are tied to a paradigm. And the paradigm is tied to beliefs, and beliefs can be changed. And my beliefs are tied to an identity. I am not good enough. I am not worthy to receive. I am not like other people that that are worthy. I am just not worthy of love. I have to prove myself worthy of love. I mean, this was my identity. And when I learned that I was codependent, I began to develop some compassion for this little person inside of me, that it wasn't her fault that she grew up living in fear of rejection and learning that she had to prove herself worthy of her father's love, who was highly critical of women. No wonder I ended up with an eating disorder and cursing myself every time I looked in the mirror, right? That all came from really my dad. This criticism and it just objectified women and was very clear about how he felt about women and their weight. Um, and it was just a horrible way to grow up, because I was being programmed to think, oh, this is what I should be worried about when it comes to men. So never feeling accepted for who I was really conditioned me to think that I have to worry about what you think I am, and I have to look a certain way, right? So for me to just turn on my camera and not worry about what people think about me is a huge accomplishment, right? For me to still do TikTok videos and YouTube videos, and to not worry about aging, right? Because I've grown up on YouTube. I started my channel in 2009. I'm now going to be 60 years old. And so for me to like keep going and not be so worried about what people think about me, well, you're still on YouTube, you're still creating videos, and you're almost 60. Like, there are so many things that go through your mind when you are raised to think that you're not good enough. And so for me to, as a healing codependent, to get on YouTube and to do a live and to do live streams on Facebook, believe it or not, like that's a big deal for someone like me, because my programming is, who do you think you are? What makes you think that you're better than us? My parents used to say that all the time. You think you're better than us. I never thought I was better than them, but they put that in my head. Like, you think you're better than us. And I would think, do I think that? It's gaslighting. I don't think that, but I'm being told, right, that I think that. And this is what dysfunctional parents do. This is what um, unhealthy people do. And this is what manipulative people do. And I think for adult children who carry the wounds of the past, what is really significant that we have to think about is that emotional abusers never admit that they're emotionally abusive. And so that's really, really significant. We have to recognize that. And so I just want to check my time, dear one. Sorry about this. Yeah, I just want to check my time because I do have a live stream happening over on Facebook today as well. So try to remember that if you're codependent, it is crazy making inside your own head first, because you're seeking approval. And unfortunately, often at times, you are involved with people who are designed to not give you approval. Like, that was a big aha moment for me. That was a big shift in my thinking when okay, I'm codependent. So my identity started to shift. And as soon as my identity started to shift, and I didn't feel so guilty for being so broken and so codependent and so needy and so insecure and so reactive, right? Because when you're codependent, you keep doing the same things over and over and over and over and over, and you're expecting that the people that you love are going to hear you, that they're going to start treating you as well as you are treating them, and it doesn't freaking happen. It doesn't happen, because codependence, our energy is repelling love, because we're not coming from love of self. We're looking for love outside of us. And if we're looking for love outside of us, then we're coming from a place of lack. Please love me. Please see me. Please find value in me. And what that does is that draws people in who actually mirror that lack of self-love. So you end up on a Ferris wheel chasing approval from somebody who's highly narcissistic, that is wired to not give you approval. They can't give you approval because they need to operate from a place of dominance, from power and control. And so this is so important that you recognize that you can get on this Ferris wheel as somebody who is codependent and never get off like my mom. I mean, it wasn't just my mom. My best friend's mom died before her spouse too, highly codependent, and the dad was highly narcissistic. My husband Anthony, his mom highly codependent, and the dad was a little gruff, and his mom passed away before his dad. And I hear it all the time, like codependents who are always taken care of and always walking around on eggshells and always having to deal with the reactivity of their partner, the projection, the stonewalling, the making up of stories, right? Like, just so difficult to take care of them. It's so difficult to please them. And so you're just constantly giving and constantly giving. You can drain yourself to complete exhaustion. And I just don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair to be born into a dysfunctional family and then which is not your fault, and then to go the rest of your life like unaware and unawakened. I see it all the time, especially on YouTube. "Oh, Lisa, I'm too old," or "It's just safer for me to live alone." Like, relationships are scary. They don't have to be, right? It's just but you have to change your identity and you have to change your programming. You have to see that this is just a paradigm. And I'm so grateful that I never gave up, that despite my family, like, trying to make me feel like I was crazy. Why was I crazy? Because I was the most emotionally honest. I was like, "This place is effed up. You guys are crazy. Like, you shouldn't talk to each other. Like, if you love me, you shouldn't say that to me. And like, if you love him, you should be honest." Like, usually the scapegoat child is the child that is the most emotionally honest, and you get punished. And so, yeah, I had a puss on my face. Yeah, I wasn't happy. Yeah. I had a problem with being verbally abused and hit with the phone. Yeah, I had a problem with that. I had a problem with my mom talking about me to her best friends and I'm an earshot. Yeah, of course I had a problem with that, right? So that's normal. That's healthy. That's healthy to be upset when people are treating you that way. But in an unhealthy family, you're not allowed to think, you're not allowed to speak, and you're not allowed to feel. And if you are someone who is like, "I don't like this," you're going to get punished. And if you don't settle in and fall into line and fawn and seek mommy and daddy's approval, then you're out. And your siblings will eventually develop an attitude towards you as well, like, "She's disposable," or "He's disposable." Why? Because you're not going along with the program. And so it's so hard and I don't think it's fair to be born into that situation and not awaken, and then spend your whole life not realizing that you're operating from survival, you're operating from fear, and you're pushing really good people away. Like, you're sending off the energy, "I'm afraid." Like, love is scary. Of course it's scary. But when you come back to the self, when you take that spiritual U-turn and you learn how to cultivate a relationship with your inner child from your higher self, which is what I teach in the 12-week breakthrough coaching program. It's my flagship program. I highly recommend it if you feel stuck. We offer it on demand at 50% off, and I'm also running it live beginning February 9th. Please go to my website if you feel stuck, www.lisaaromano.com. Click 12-week breakthrough coaching program to learn more. My class roster is getting underway now, and we're creating the Facebook group for that. But please don't get stuck. You are worthy of love. And I know it sounds like kumbaya crap and hippy dippy, like you have to love yourself, right? But it's true. I did not know I did not love myself. I did not know I did not have a self. I did not know that my entire identity was tied to whether or not um, you approved of me or my friend approved of me, or whether or not I got the other thing that was nuts, which I didn't even know I was doing until really dug in and did my work, was I was looking for permission from my ex-husband, right? "Can you give me permission to feel like we have an unhappy marriage?" Like, what? Like, that's how I rolled. I needed him to say, "Yes, we have a toxic marriage." From his perspective, he didn't think our marriage was toxic. Why? All his freaking needs were met. All his needs were met. He had a wife who met his needs, who cared about his emotions, who cared about his dreams, who cared about his desires. Why would he be unhappy? Right? But that took me a long time to figure out. I thought it must be me. I'm unhappy and he's happy, so I must be the lunatic. I must be the nut job.
I really felt like I was losing my mind. How could I be so unhappy in my marriage and my husband be so okay? It took me years to figure this out, dear one. Well, when you're the codependent and you lack a sense of self and you don't trust yourself and you don't operate from I think, I feel, I want, I need, and you are hypervigilant and you focus on what does he think, what does he need, what does he feel, how can I make sure that he's comfortable, how can I meet his needs, always, oh, oh, he's a little ornery, oh, let me go get his bottle and powder his butt and walk around on eggshells and tell him how handsome he is. Like, that's how I used to roll. I thought that was my job. Why? Because my mother did that, and I thought that's the way I'm supposed to be. And so I was baffled by how unhappy I was, and I punished myself. I thought, "Lisa, you're such a terrible person because everybody loves him and he seems so happy. You must be the nut job." But when I dug into codependency and I realized the power dynamics, being codependent and being married to someone who's highly narcissistic, lacks empathy, has feels entitled to emotionally exploit you and put you down and gaslight you and stonewall you because they really do think they're better than you. They really do think that you owe them because they married you. They really do think that. And when you couple that with not having a self and seeking approval and not even realizing that you're doing that, you're on this subconscious wheel, then I realized I'm not crazy for being so unhappy. I'm giving and giving and giving, expecting to get something in return from someone who is not built for living in a reciprocal relationship. He just wasn't built for it. And so this really helped shift me. But it is not easy to accept that, and once you see it, it's like toothpaste out of the tube, you can't unsee it, and I'm the kind of person, like, if I see it, I have to do something about it, and I think that was part of why it was so hard for me to, like, see this, because I knew if I got in touch with how unhappy I wasn't gonna be able to stay, and that threw a monkey wrench in my mind because it meant I was going to have to leave. I gave up my nursing career to marry him and to have children. I was not gonna have a job when I left. I was not gonna have a family to support me. I was gonna have 3 little kids and a very, very angry husband and an entire family that was going to be very unpleasant, and I was stalked for 7 years. For 7 years, it was absolute hell. But I can tell you, after looking back on my life, I'm so glad that I went through that pain and suffering because on the other side of all that fear is love. And now I have a stainless steel spine and I don't give my power over to effing anybody anymore. Nobody. Nobody has power over me anymore. I mean that. I do things because I want to. I love this mission-based business. I love sharing this message. I love writing books. I love creating programs. I love nurturing my live classes and offering live streams every week. I just love it. I'm in my zone, and I would have never found my zone had I not gone through this terrible, terrible experience. And so I encourage you that if you're on this path and you resonate with this work, please never stop. I'm on this journey now almost 3 decades, and I'm so grateful that I've learned what I've learned. And I'm just one person. I've written 8 books. I have 3 coaching programs, flagship coaching programs. I have a huge YouTube community. I have a huge following on Facebook. Um, I have a wonderful podcast. I do live events. I'm just one person. They can't hold me back. Nobody's ever going to hold me back. And the same creative force that is within me is within you. You have value. So I really hope that this helps, and I really hope that if you love this work, please go to my website. I have a ton of resources on my website. I have a free codependency quiz. I have a codependency presentation. I have a bunch of products that, from $4.99 up, and I create all these products to help you awaken and believe in yourself because I can tell you that if you're codependent, you have inner child wounds that are unrecovered, it's hell. And we all deserve to live in alignment with our true self. That's your birthright. I don't care what's happened in the past, dear one, that is your birthright. And it is an honor to be your guide and to be your coach on this journey. So please take advantage of those resources. And if you have time, hop over to Facebook, and I'm about to go live there next. So you're a wonderful community. Facebook has been so good to me. Thank you so much to my subscribers for supporting me and for sharing my work. You guys really are the wind beneath my wings, because you give me the courage to keep showing up and keep showing up. And what more can I say? What more can I say? So thank you for that. I'll see you guys soon. Bye for now.